Right, so welcome to All for United. We are live with a fantastic panel today. Obviously, we're going to be discussing Villa and everything that's happened since, to be honest. With all the rumours today, I don't know whether I'm coming or going to what is actually going to be happening at Manchester United in the next 2 weeks. We've got a great panel, as always. We've got Beanie, Daz, Mr. Wall. So, Beanie, are you well?
Yeah, all good. I wish United were playing a bit better, but other than that, it's all good, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not the only one. Daz, you're going to be a big part of this show for me, my friend, because me and you had a big conversation about Ten Hag in or out a few weeks back, and I'm no different to what I was then. But as on that show, could not disagree with anything you said. So it's going to be a good show tonight. How are you? Are you well?
Yeah, I'm good. You know what? I was actually saying to Barry the other night that after our conversation, I was trying to find anything to basically say that he needs to stay. You know, sort of basically say we told ourselves after Ragnick that we wouldn't moan after 2 years. If it goes wrong, we're going to see the process through because that's what we thought. So I actually came away thinking maybe you was right. And then taking Rashford off against Porto, and then obviously what we see against Aston Villa. And then I've just gone straight back into that convincing mode that I was right all along. Yeah, so I'm feeling quite happy because I'm hoping this time tomorrow we'll be discussing who the new manager is going to be, having had an official announcement that they have parted ways. So I'm feeling quite happy that we're going to move on from this, better or worse.
We'll have to see, but I'll be honest, I'll be not gutted if he's moved on, but frustrated if he's moved on. And we'll get into it a little bit later. Andy, you missed the Villa game. Obviously, we've just spoke about that backstage. But other than that, are you well?
I was watching it, even though I wasn't actually at the ground, so I was watching the whole game. So as we said backstage, frustration it was. It's like I say, the draw didn't really help us in any way. A win was probably going to be better for us just get those 3 points on the board and up the table. Somebody I work with is a Villa fan, and they said, well, on Friday, the Villa beating Bayern, it was going to be Sunday was going to be the after the Lord Mayor show for Villa. It kind of was. If we'd have just strung something together, we could have hit them and come away with all the points, but just felt like neither side just didn't want to win it in the end.
No, it was a frustrating watch. Frustration is definitely going to be that word today. So we'll start with Beanie. What did you just make? Just round up the whole performance in general. Things you thought were talking points, and we'll go over them one by one, and we'll all add some stuff. What did you just make of the game in general? I agree with what Andy's saying. They had pretty much a Champions League hangover going off. Yeah. So I feel like trying to argue both sides here because they definitely had a Champions League hangover going off. But I've got to point out they've only lost 4 games at Villa Park in 24. So it's not an easy place to go and win. So was a draw a good result? What did you make of the game?
I think under any other circumstances, going to Villa Park, I think it's a good point now, isn't it? Even if you're in form, it's a very tricky place to go. But it's just that we're not in form, is it? And we're so sort of we're just crying out for 3 points. We're crying out for a few goals. We're crying out for a bit of a performance. It felt like both teams had a little bit of a hangover to me. Neither team really did enough to win it. I thought United were very blunt going forward again, but I thought Villa were just very average. As Andy just said, I think if we'd have just strung something together, they'd have been there to get at. I think we nearly nicked it with a Bruno free kick. Johnny Evans starting in the back line. I mean, before the game, like Twitter and social media was melting down, weren't it? Before the game, he's got to go. Starting Johnny Evans, pulls out man of the match performance. He's always solid though, any Evans and Maguire are always solid. But yeah, it's very uninspiring United. But we possibly should have won that game if there was a little bit more about us. We could have nicked it, but we're struggling for goals, aren't we, at the minute? I think that's what's doing United. Because Onana is keeping clean sheets. He's top of the Golden Glove rankings or whatever you call them. 4 clean sheets in 8, I think it is, or something like that. Yeah, we're just crying out for goals, missing that killer instinct up top, I think, as we have been for most of the season.
Yeah, I think John sums it up quite well here. Toothless in attack, which would be the case. Andy, what about you? What did you make of the game? Did you? I mean, you said it backstage. It was not the best watch in the world. Where was your frustration the most in what we were seeing?
Probably what was lacking the cutting edge in the final third. So, let's say you probably disregard, the result we had at Southampton, that 3-0, but we failed to score more than one solitary goal in any other Premier League outing. So, it's just, and that was the last time we registered a goal was at Southampton. So we got a tally of 17 big chances missed, which is ranked second domestically. So we've got an abundance of talented forwards who are just struggling with their efforts. I mean, Rashford came close with that fizzing fit in the first half, and as we said, Bruno rattled the crossbar. I thought that was in. So for all the improvement we made defensively, it's just the forwards need to start converting these opportunities at every point now. It's just, I was thinking, you looked at that lineup. I think all our eyes were looking at that defence going, oh, Maguire and Evans, and just like, oh, what does that say about De Ligt and Martinez? Oh, you're not trusting them to lead that defensive line. And even Ngate was on the bench. I think they worked out the bench was like worth 330 million pounds worth of talent on the bench. It's like eyebrows are being raised all over the place. But as I say, seems like the media and everyone else, when that lineup came out, it's being painted as it's a 10 hours downfall. The side he's picked, but those changes he made in defence, obviously, worked. So it's just like you look at Johnny Evans, he put in a great performance, and it's like it's what he said afterwards of the game. It's a privilege to play for Manchester United, and that comes with pressure. So I don't know whether that was to say to the others, you've got to rise up to the pressure. So, but yeah, in terms of the whole game, Villa were just flat and quiet. I thought first half, I just felt we did well to control them because we had most of the possession. But I just thought, second half, Emre's going to fire them up, and they're going to come at us, but they still didn't. And I just thought, if we could have just, as I said, strung an actual move together and got a goal, we could have all nicked it late on. I don't think Villa would have had an answer. I was probably a bit worried when John Duran came on. I thought, oh, here we go. Super sub's going to do it. But they were struggling. It was just a hangover for them. It's just a cutting edge for me. But it's just damning statistics all over for United at the moment. Fewest points in the league after, was it 8 games? Was it 7 or 8 games now? So it's just... I'm glad it's the international break. I can just slightly switch my mind up from United for a few weeks, but United's going to be in the news every day anyway, going forward with Ten Hag and everything else that's going on. But as I said, frustrating, but draw does us no favours whatsoever.
We definitely not escaping Man United news in the next 2 weeks, especially if what Daz is predicting tomorrow, we're going to be all over the back pages for the next 2 weeks. The internationals won't matter. What about yourself, Daz? What did you make of the game? Was it, obviously, you've been quite vocal on Ten Hag out. Did that sort of hit the nail in the coffin for you?
I've actually had a really, really good another look at the game and a really good think about all this. So first thing I want to say, and I know you guys pretty much said this, but if I would have said to everybody before the game we was going to get a point and a clean sheet against Aston Villa, given all of the circumstances that have been happening, our poor form, their good form, they seem to be ahead of United, everybody would have taken that without question. I think I'm actually really impressed with Ten Hag for one reason. I think that he deliberately played Johnny Evans and Maguire. Forget about rotation. He played deliberately because he wanted to play a certain way that game. And I think he executed that absolutely perfectly. I think he was happy just not to lose that game. I think that is how he set that team up. So because he executed what I believe is his game plan, I think he deserves loads of credit for that, because ultimately, as a manager, you want to be able to execute whatever your game plan is in that game, win, lose, or, you know, draw. It doesn't matter. I think he executed it. I think he subs. I wasn't happy that he played Garnacho. I think this is a player that has the ability to come on and impact the game later on in the game, and we lack that massively, especially when Aston Villa seem to be struggling to get out of their second gear. You know, the game was there for the taking. I think what frustrates me the most is that every single game this season, every single game, we've created loads of chances and he's genuinely tried to win football games and it's just not happened for him. The thing that frustrated me is he stopped doing that against Aston Villa and he went for a completely different mindset. And that frustrates me. I mean, I would have had more respect for him if we'd have lost 3-0, but at least they'd have continued to try. And at least then you can say he's stubborn, but you know what I mean? But at least he's trying to make his philosophy work, as opposed to saying that it's got a bit tough and we're just going to go back to the football that we know we can grind 1-0 wins out of, but it's not attractive, it's not good, it's not the way we want this Man United team to be built on. And yeah, I think that really frustrated me. And another thing that frustrates me is his need to want to put Rashford and Garnacho in the same team at the same time. For me, it's got to be one or the other. If he wants Garnacho as his left winger, as much as I love Rashford and I think Rashford's a better footballer and he can offer more, as a manager, I respect his decision, but he has to make a decision which one he prefers, because this year we've seen Marcus Rashford build up a bit of form, a bit of confidence, and then he knocks him back a level. He then does it again. He builds up. Like at Porto, I think taking him off against Porto knocked him back again. And we saw that against Aston Villa. I think if he'd have stayed on against Porto and he'd have come into this Aston Villa game with the confidence that he had, even though we played the way we played, I think he'd have been good for a goal. And I think we could have ended up with a smash and grab win. But yeah, so I think I'm really happy that he did execute his game plan, because I actually think what we saw is what he wanted. And I think neither team wanted to win that game. And I don't think Unai Emery wanted to win that game. I think at this point in the season, Unai Emery knew that he could afford to take a draw. Given the fact that he knows Man United are the team. I mean, we talk about Man United can't score goals. We scored 3 against Porto. We scored, you know, the goals against Southampton, the goals against Barnsley. We can score goals. We're just not doing it consistently across all of the games to win games. And I think Unai Emery knew that we can score goals, and I think he didn't want to risk it, because I think he could afford a draw, but he couldn't afford a loss, and certainly couldn't afford one to United. He has got quite a poor record against Ten Hag, and he admitted that before the game. So I think he was happy just to wait for Man United to make a mistake. Obviously, we didn't make it, but I think he was happy with that.
Yeah, I think it was definitely one of those games where you could argue that both teams didn't want to lose. So we ended up in sort of a stalemate. There's a couple of comments coming here that I want to go over. Box has got this one, Beanie. And I think he changed the team because most players are consistently underperforming. Now, you would have seen, in fact, no, you wouldn't have seen because you're not on Twitter that much, but on Twitter, I was absolutely digging out every big account for instantly going that we was going to lose 3 or 4-0. Maguire was crap. Evans is crap. Why are they playing for Manchester United in 2024? And I just find it absolutely ridiculous that that's the narrative when Martinez has underperformed. De Ligt really struggled against Porto. So why wouldn't you rotate? There was people questioning why Eriksen was starting. Eriksen's been one of our best midfielders in the last 5 games. So why is the fan base getting on at these players? Do you not think we've already made this mistake with Scott McTominay in the last year and other players that have left the club? We're constantly getting on at them and they turn out to be the best players. When you think about Ten Hag's reign, Maguire and McTominay have saved his job countless times. So why is it suddenly these players are always the problem? But then, and I don't want to dig out any players in particular, Fernandez had another really quiet game. So Fernandez
I
really
think
should be on.
that's another
Not you,
big
Daz.
problem
Beanie.
to the game.
Let Beanie have this one. Yeah, so it's an interesting one. So what do you make of this? Do you think that it was not rotation, but more so that these players were actually underperforming and didn't deserve to start?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, Martinez and De Ligt were awful, weren't they, against Porto? What was the game before that? Tottenham as well. Shocking. If you remember, before De Ligt was the sort of starter at centre back, Maguire was solid. Our back line looked solid before De Ligt came into it. For me, Martinez and De Ligt are too similar. They both want to like progress with the ball. When Maguire's a bit more old school and is a bit more sort of, he'll do his job proper. Do you know what I mean? He'll be that defender that will be solid. He'll be that solid player at the back there, which I do think we miss massively. Eriksen, like you say, what's he done wrong this season? Absolutely nothing. I think people just like to see like the new guys in, don't they? I think the Ugarte one, I think, is a bit strange. For if he was a Ten Hag signing, the fact he's not really playing, I think, is a bit odd. But I don't think you can really. The fact Bruno hasn't been dropped, I think there could be a shout that you drop Bruno because he's been playing horrendously this season. But yeah, for me, I'd like to think that he put one on De Ligt and Martinez there and said, "You're not undroppable. You know, there are other people that can come in and do an equally as good a job, if not better." So for me, yeah, that's massive like thumbs up to Ten Hag. That for me, no one should be undroppable. If you're playing shit, then your place can get took by the next guy who can come in and do an equally as good job. Like you say, last season, McTominay wasn't a starter, but the amount of times he scored very important goals for us, got very important results for us, saved Ten Hag's job probably on numerous occasions, and he gets absolutely slated by the fan base. I've never understood it. And look at him in Napoli now. Napoli fans absolutely love him. They've got like the chants going on for McTominay in the crowd, and that they love him. Yeah, I think that's where our fan base lets themselves down massively. We attack our own players far too freely and far too openly. And like I know you're a big fan of Maguire. He's never let us down, really. He's never let us down. He's not fancy, but he's a solid defender, and he always has been.
No, I was saying again, just the other day on X, I was saying that I would say of the 5 years he's been here so far, he had a really poor 12 months. But other than that, he's actually been quite consistent in his performances. Is it the performance of an £80 million centre back? Well, you could argue for some of it, yes, and some of it, no. But it's just one of
that's not his fault, though, is it?
No, well, I'm just honestly, I'm the frustration for me on X, and Andy, you might have saw this on X. The amount of people that took pot shots at Evans as well before the game had even kicked off. I'm just sat there as a United fan going, what am I watching here? He's not even kicked a ball, and we've already got him losing 4-0. And I'll let you have a little bit of a say on this, Andy. Man of the match performance. Do you agree? He was absolutely excellent.
He was, say, it was a bold call by Ten Hag, to select him, and I think all eyes were raised that it was him and Maguire, but that was Ten Hag's reaction to Martinez and De Ligt's poor efforts against Porto. I think Maguire was rewarded because he got us, salvaged that point for us as well. It was just unfortunate he got injured during the Villa game as well, because I thought it was going to be Johnny Evans going off because he took a few knocks from the Villa players, but he carried on, and just even when De Ligt came on and partnered him, he was the one standing out. We say he was alert, sharp, and solid, and reduced the defensive masterclass. And I think there'll be one person that was watching from that stand yesterday that would have been ultimately proud, and that was Sir Alex Ferguson. One of his former soldiers, stepping up and defending our club as well. So Evans made his debut back in 2007 and was sold by Van Gaal, that was a mistake in itself. But then Ten Hag brought him back, last season, and I think probably he would admit, and probably all us fans, we probably didn't expect him to play as much as he did last season. But when he did, he stepped up, and he's been a force to be reckoned with. And he led United into that cauldron that is Villa Park, and the team, him and the team rallied around Ten Hag. Ten Hag's future is still up for a lot of debate, but you would say those United players are still fighting, and Evans is embodying the spirit more than anybody as well. As I said, he said it's a privilege to play for this club, and you've got to accept that pressure that comes with it. So yeah, he was brilliant. And just on other players as well, like Bruno, I feel like it's probably been one of his worst weeks, at United. It's just like the 2 red cards. Obviously, the one against Tottenham got rescinded, but then the one against Porto, it's debatable. We just don't want to give the referee a choice on these matters as well. So, but yeah, it's just, you know, it's almost like when we said all that, when he got that red card against, we can have a break, you can have a bit of a break, but it just feels like Bruno's short of confidence, and you know, he's not that creative outlet that United, us United fans have known to love as well. It just seems like he's struggling at the moment. So all good players go through struggles, you know, and their form goes down, but they usually work their way back to it. So I've got confident Bruno will come back to his best as well. But yeah, it's just time is in short supply at United at the minute.
Yeah, the Bruno one's frustrating for me because he sort of admitted before the game that he's having a bit of a tough season, not something he's used to. And it sounds strange, but maybe that's a bit of a nod to say maybe I could get dropped here because I'm not playing well, and I know I'm not playing well. Just to briefly go, because I wasn't on the Porto show, I was at work. The Bruno Fernandes red card against Porto was absolutely ridiculous. And the amount of people I've seen defend it because they don't like, again, someone put about agendas because they've got this agenda push. Not only did he win the ball, he didn't see the man, he got the ball first, and he got his foot down without touching him. It's not reckless, it's not dangerous, it's not a second bookable offence. And this is it again. I'm going to start going in on Man United fans a little bit here because I'm sort of fed up of seeing them so split in the way they go about things. Instead of looking at the Porto player who was rolling round on the floor holding his face, we decided to go after our captain who was trying to flick the ball in and score. And I just find it such a weird place that's where we're at, that it's better to target an individual than sort of, do you know what, I'm going to back this team. Let's not write the team off before the 90, like before the 90 minutes even kick off. Let's see how they get on first. Maybe support them. That'd be a good start. Daz, we've got one here about this one. Box. Bruno and Mainu both look tired. Do you agree with that, with what we saw in the Villa game? Do you think there's... Because I agree. I thought we looked a little bit leggy in midfield. So do you feel like there should be more changes in midfield?
I think Bruno looks mentally tired. You know, not just physically, I think mentally. I mean, he's the captain. So between him and Erik ten Hag, everything that's going is on the weight of their shoulders, you know. And the captain of Manchester United has always been a tough job. You know, good players like Harry Maguire, and I do stand by that he's a really good player. I think Harry Maguire has been Manchester United's best defender since he's been at the club. Better than Varane, better than Lisandro Martinez, you know. And he couldn't cope with the weight of that, you know, that armband. It is it's a big expectation. Same for the manager. I think he looks mentally tired, and I genuinely think had Mason Mount have been available, Mason Mount had played over Bruno for Aston Villa. I think it was just the lack of options for Erik ten Hag was the reason he played. Kobbie Mainoo, I've said this all along, Kobbie Mainoo broke through in a way that nobody could ever imagine. And just because of how young he is, just because of how inconsistent he is, he was always going to drop. Always. It's normal with young players, especially
that young. Do you think he's been overused?
He was always going to get a bit of a dip, especially when he's being overused. I think this year we're just sort of seeing that, and it's for me, I just want to see how he bounces back from this little blip, because I think that'll be the character that will define him for the rest of his career. How we can, jump back from these moments, and whether it is just a player that came through, had a great start, and he's just never going to be another great player ever again, or whether this is a player that, like any world-class player out there, does sometimes have a dip in form, But yeah, I think both of them look tired. I think Kobbie Mainoo, it's strange because if you're 16 and you're at Man City, you don't have that much pressure. If you're at Liverpool and you're 16, I can never remember Harvey Elliott having this much pressure when he broke through at Liverpool. It was just let him enjoy himself. And he's had some really, really bad games for Liverpool. And it's fine. He's young. But when it's Kobbie Mainoo, it's all the keyboard warriors come out. I thought he was the next Zidane. It's this, You know, he's young. He's gonna be, he's allowed to be inconsistent. He's allowed to be tired. He's allowed to have bad games because that is the part of growing up in football. It's a normal process. And I think maybe he's felt the pressure that it's always one rule at United and another rule at every other club. And I think maybe, he's seeing that, and maybe he's mentally tired from it.
Do you think the players around him have meant that he hasn't had the luxury that you would get at Arsenal and City? Because in essence, they're letting him down. So they're not playing. It's going back to the Martinez and De Ligt stuff. Like, again, I don't want to target any players, but there's got to be that if you're not playing well, you're droppable. And because players haven't stepped up enough, Kobe Mainoo's been overused. So he's that's why the pressure's so high, because he's playing every single game. So do you think it's a little bit of his teammates have let him down in this?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's unfair on him because his partner is ultimately has been Casemiro. Casemiro, without a shadow of a doubt, is probably, I'm sure somebody will come in and tell me I'm wrong, but I think you all get what I mean. He's probably the most decorated footballer in the world right now, playing, except for Messi and Ronaldo. Playing in Europe, I think Casemiro is the most decorated player in Europe in terms of what he's been through. He's a senior player. This is a player that Kobe Mainoo should be leaning on for support. This is a player that Kobe Mainoo should be relying on to get him through these bad days. But Casemiro hasn't stepped up, and Eriksen, he's been great in the last couple of games, but last year he wasn't I don't think he was overly great. He wasn't a player that you'd expect from him. So then Kobe Mainoo found himself having that place far too easy, and he shouldn't. Scott McTominay was just not getting used enough, or not in a right way. And I think it's just because Kobe Mainoo was playing well, he just seemed to be the only obvious choice. I don't think Kobe Mainoo should be a starter at Manchester United, not at this age. But because he's been the best midfielder, he's the obvious choice for the job. And obviously Mason Mount was injured last year, so there was no option to, either play Bruno or Mason Mount a little bit deeper to cover that Kobe Mainoo role. But yeah, and I think it's really tough. And I think this is one of the problem at Manchester United at the minute. I mean, going back to the Johnny Evans being selected, people look at Johnny Evans and they see his age, to see the fact that he didn't quite make it in Man United and moved on, and he didn't have an overly great career. I think he's had a good football career, but it hasn't been, since leaving Man United, he hasn't gone on to win this, that, and the other. I think he's just had a good career. But since coming back to Manchester United, I don't think he's had a bad game for Man United. I think he's just a consistently good player. Sorry, a consistently okay player, that when you actually think about it as well, that he's behind, this year, he should be behind Lisandro Martinez, Matthijs de Ligt, Lena Yoro, Harry Maguire, and
probably
Lindelof. He should be behind all five of them in the pecking order. You name me a better fifth choice footballer in the world than Johnny Evans. I don't think
the problem is
that has a better fifth choice than Johnny Evans. So, but he has been playing and he has played well. But when he plays, the fan base go mental. And I'm like, but going back to some players just need dropping. You can't blame the manager for making this, because they did this. They criticised him for playing Anthony over and over and over when he was playing poor. And then this year, the fans would moan if he wasn't dropping Lisandro Martinez and Matthijs de Ligt, and we'd get hammered 3-0 against Aston Villa. Why did he play them? They've been poor in the last couple of weeks. The answer is because when we play Maguire and Evans, you moan, And I think it's just, all of that has just been so unfair on the midfield to find stability.
Yeah, to be fair, the team's not helped the midfield. Andy, you wanted to make a point on Kobe Mainoo. Be my guest.
Yeah, I was saying, as I said, Kobe Mainoo's broken through. Like last season, he was one of the standout performers, and just reading something a while back, one of the stats about him. So obviously, he hasn't quite reached the same height as last season just yet, but You know, he had a busy summer away at the Euros, and that's understandable. He looks a bit, you know, tired like the rest of the players, but you know, he's been trying to find the best midfield. Ten Hag's been trying to find the best midfield partnership for him, and you know, you got Ngate added to the mix now as well. But when the pressure was the highest, Ten Hag's put, you know, Mainu and Eriksen against Villa, so many strengths that, you know, are all there clear to see. You know, he's composed, hardworking, can pass the ball, and you know, he's got a keen eye for a goal when he gets forward. But you know, I think one of the stats showing he's been dispossessed more than any other United player in the Premier League this season, so 15 times, which ranks him like 10th in the entire Premier League in terms of how many times dispossessed. So I think Garnacho actually sits behind him with 13. But I think what might worry Ten Hag is, you know, he's been dispossessed more than twice as many times as any other United midfielder. So, but could argue is Ten Hag's system helping him also, you know, Mainu's being caught in possession as a result of an imbalance in the midfield. But sometimes, you know, with Ten Hag's system, you know, it's a bit chaotic and it's left Mainu a bit exposed and vulnerable. So no question about Mainu's ability, but sometimes he's bound to lose it when United can't get around United can't get players around him to protect him as well. So let's say at the Villa game, the organisation looked much better in the midfield, and hopefully going forward, Ten Hag will give, you know, the structure where it allows Mainu to get more involved as well. So plus Mainu started every Premier League game this season and played the most minutes of any other midfield other than Bruno. So let's say he's currently playing a lot of games, so he's going to have a few games where he's not quite at it.
Yeah. Oh, I can't disagree with anything you said there, Andy, at all, to be honest. I feel sorry for Mainu. I think there's an element to I think you said chaos was the word. There's an element of chaos to Ten Hag's tactics. And I think it's about the 32nd minute against Villa. There's a bit where the midfielder's running away from Mainu and he looks shattered half an hour into the game. And I think it's genuinely just his workload and the fact that the midfielder are having to cover some serious ground to stay compact. And I've spoke on Twitter this week about, again, I don't want to see Ten Hag go. I think we've made this mistake already with Solskjaer. We listened to people saying, "Oh, the Solskjaer should be winning winning the league with the team he's got. Any manager would be better than this PE teacher. No matter who you bring in, they'd be better." And they've done it pretty much ever since David Moyes, and it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. So surely the problem is the chopping and the changing, and it's costing. It's making issues for us down the way. There's one player I wanted to talk about, Beanie, and that's Rasmus Højlund. Now, I'm becoming frustrated with Højlund in the sense that I don't think he's ready to lead the line for us, and he's struggling a little bit. And again, the chaos in the tactics aren't helping him. But it was becoming a little bit frustrating watching him on against Villa. I don't think he can be match fit because he was struggling to run more than 5 yards without losing the ball. And when I say losing the ball, I mean he was tripping over the ball. And I just thought he really wasn't at it against Villa. So my question would be really, it's twofold. What did you make of his performance? And if this is how the forwards are going to perform, do we just drop Ethan Wheatley in and give him a chance?
Yeah, I mean, like you say, Højlund don't look fit at all, does he? Yeah, he looks miles off it at the moment. But is he a bit of a product that we are chasing the goals at the moment? So Ten Hag's thinking, I've got to put him in. I've got to play the striker. I mean, you don't get any service anyway. Garnacho's got no interest in passing to him. And then when you bring Xerxes on, geez, it's like a hot potato every time he gets the ball, isn't it? He just gets it pinged to him, and he's just trying to get rid of it as quick as he can. I don't know, is he a striker? Is he a 10? Is he a winger? I'm not sure what he is, Xerxes, at the minute. But yeah, I don't know if it's the stubbornness of Ten Hag that they are his boys, Højlund and Xerxes, that he brought him in. And Wheatley, is he a little bit uneasy bringing in another youngster? I don't know, but at the moment, I mean, could Wheatley do any worse than what the strikers are doing at the moment? I mean, to be fair, like United have always been, if you're good enough, you're old enough. And I thought Wheatley showed little signs at the end of last season that he had something about him, and he does well in the unders. He gets goals in the younger leagues and stuff. So why not throw him in? Even in the League Cup, let's see what he can do. Even in the Europa League, let's see what he can do. Because we're just not scoring goals, are we? So we may unearth another Mainu, we may unearth another gem that we don't have to spend another 100 million on. Even this What's the lad that we just signed from Arsenal? I know he's a young lad, but put him in. Just see, even if it's a cup game, just see how they react to the pressure, because it will be massive pressure at the minute because we are all over the shop. But can it be any worse? For me, probably not. But like you say, Haaland definitely isn't fit enough to start at the moment. I don't think. I think you're right there.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting comment because I think it's right for Haaland because Haaland's been injured, but it's not right for Xerxes because he's had, I think, 9 big chances missed. So the chances have been there. Dave's saying it's Obi Martin.
Obi Martin, that's it.
Yeah. So maybe we could chuck him in. What's your opinion on Haaland at the minute, Daz? Do you think that he could be a player that,
I
if we stick
really
with him,
like him? And I want to
good?
start by saying that I really, really like him. And this is, for me, I look at him and I see a Manchester United player. Not a starting Manchester United, but I see the characteristic, the way I love, absolutely, he's becoming one of my favourite players. And one quick thing, somebody mentioned that we're not creating enough chances for him. In previous games, that could be an argument, but against Aston Villa, he had 5 key passes. On all of them 5 key passes, he didn't get a single shot off. You know, so you can't always blame we're not creating him enough. He does need to be doing more. But I think when you take away everything, you just ask yourself the question: would he start for Arsenal? No. Would he start for Man City? No. Would he start for Aston Villa? No. Would he start for Chelsea? No. Would he start for Napoli, Inter Milan, AC Milan? No. Barcelona, Bayern Munich? So why is he starting for Manchester United? The problem is, Xerxes wouldn't start for any of them teams, which leaves Manchester United in a really awkward position where we've got no centre forward or false 9 that would start for any top side team. Now, that's not a criticism on Haaland. I think that he is one for the future. But when you've got players available, I mean, Ivan Toney, I thought at one point Ivan Toney was gettable. I think, genuinely, I think Victor Osimhen, he obviously went out on loan. Couldn't he have come to us on loan? Ollie Watkins, I know Aston Villa seem to be ahead of us in the summer, but Man United are a bigger club, and it's,
we've had this conversation before, though, Daz.
I just feel as if there was better options available. Maybe not the perfect option.
We can't get them. So I see what you're saying in terms of Osimhen. Can't get him. Can't afford. PSR would have gone. We couldn't have got Watkins. Levy was never selling as Harry Kane, no matter how much money we put on the table. It was just never going to happen. So I think we sort of, maybe Ten Hag and the club have accepted that we buy him for the future. So we bought Haaland and Xerxes because we know that maybe they're not the finished product now, but in 4 years they could be. So again, it comes back to fan patience. Have we got enough patience to allow these players to grow?
I do get that, and I really do believe you've got to build for the future, but players don't necessarily become world-class players or great players because you've given them 3-4 years. Jude Bellingham, I don't think would have turned into Jude Bellingham had he not have been at Dortmund. For him, he went at a really good, stable club that was competing on every single level, never really winning the league, but he was competing. He was in the Champions League, and it was a place where he could develop. I don't see that Manchester United, as of right now, is a place where any player could develop. I really don't. So I don't think you get 4 years at Man United. I think that there needs to be a better balance between bringing in these young players. I wouldn't have argued if you'd have told me at the start of last season that we're going to have Cody Mainoo next to Casemiro, and he's going to brush off, or we're going to bring in Haaland and then we're going to, instead of buying Xerxes, we're going to bring in a bit more of a vintage footballer, whether that's a loan deal, whether that's someone really at the end of his career to work with him. And just what we've done is we went from a place where we was buying loads of old players, seasoned footballers that was coming to Man United for a paycheck, to buying loads of young players. There just needs to be a better balance. I mean, I'll refer to Alex Ferguson just because it's, one of the most common examples. Alex Ferguson had a really good balance between youth players, young players, players in the peak, players coming down, and then the senior players that he knew he could rely on any given day to do what he needed them to do. And there was a really good balance amongst the team. And every year when some old players, moved on, the prime players moved into the senior category, and everyone moved up, and it developed a bit more youth, or it'd bring in a few more players. And it was the perfect place to develop players. As of right now, and I don't think it's been the case for 10 years, Man United is always going to be a team that's going to develop academy players, but I don't think it's a team that can develop players anymore. Perfect example is Angel Gomez. The minute he left Manchester United, he started developing to the potential that we all saw when he was in the academy. I mean, because Angel Gomez was one of these footballers that was being heavily linked to being similar to Messi in the way that he played as an academy player. But he was just the wrong player at the wrong time for Manchester United. And I think that had been part of the issue that we've had with young players. They were just not a club that's stable enough to give a player 4 years to develop. And that's sad because, we've over the years, we've done it and it's been great. And I think we're in a position now, like you mentioned, with FFP and all of that sort of stuff, where do we go? I mean, it's evident we're not scoring goals because we've not got a centre forward that can score us 30 goals. I'm not even convinced we've got two. I mean, even if you had Obi Martin in there with, Obi Martin, Xerxes and Hoyland, I'm not convinced we've got 3 players that can score us 30 goals between them. But ultimately, we need 30 goals. I mean, we're not all going to find a Haaland, but if you can find 3 players that can score 30 goals, I'll take that, because 30 goals is 30 goals you wasn't getting. But I don't think we're getting that. And I think that's the issue. I think maybe you was right in your last video, Dan, where you said maybe it is patience and maybe that world-class centre forward is on the shopping list, and maybe that's coming in the summer.
Yeah, well, I think NT makes a great point here. Maybe we bought Hoyland because we knew he wasn't quite the finished product, but it would be cheaper to do it now than wait. Like we've made mistakes in the past. Andy, I want to get your opinion on this, mate, because you go to Old Trafford weekly. You see more of the football up close than any of us. It's stuff like this. Like, I get that Gomez is now getting picked for England and stuff, but he wasn't good enough when he came from the academy, and he struggled when he came from the academy at United. And he couldn't have started because we was trying to push back to the top. Do you think that there's got to be a compromise now? And I've talked about it quite a lot lately, where I think the match goer is probably better at answering this than anybody, to be honest, where the expectation just has to cool off a little bit. Like, I understand that we're Manchester United and we are, as Graham Souness admitted on the telly the other day, the biggest club in the world, which was absolutely fantastic, by the way. We've just got to level out the expectation a little bit. Like I said, we'd finish 6th this season, and I still think that's probably where we're going to finish, because just at the minute, Liverpool are better than we are, City are better than we are, Arsenal are better than we are, Spurs are, Villa are. So we're in and around that 6th place. So we've got to sort of accept that we're going to have these games where we should win, but maybe we don't score enough, to the view that next season we might actually start taking these chances, or later in the season we go on a run of 5 wins. Is that something that you feel like you could accept as a match goer? Or is it the thing? What I'm getting at is, I see everywhere it's basically got to be instant success. It's just not going to happen, is it?
I get that. We all want United to be successful, and I don't know why the way football is today. Another club, other clubs as well. Oh, it's that instant. Oh, United should be doing that instant success. You got to look at this in the last couple. Okay, we haven't won the Premier League or the Champions League, but look, we have been in. The league, we won the League Cup. It was in 2 FA Cup finals. We won one of them. So just that impatient amongst some of the fan base. And I just think you know, you're just looking at our attacking line at the moment. Maybe in the summer we should have, you know, gone out and got a 20 goal season goal scorer. So I know somebody was like saying about Xerxes as well, saying, what's he put out on Twitter? He's only had 7 or 8 games and he's like the worst signing ever. I'm like, he's just only had 7 or 8 games, and he's a natural number 9, 10, or, you know, a striker. You know, whereas Hoyland is probably the more. I can see Hoyland during matches. Was it the 20 game, for example? You know, where it was when he, you know, was 1-1, and I could just see him in the box, and he was like, he's waiting for the ball to come, and like, he's just like, give me something, just get that ball. I will try and do something for you. I'll try and get the goal. But then when I know we said before, the service is not coming, and that's probably why sometimes he has to drop a bit deep just to get onto the ball as well, which I know Xerxes does as well. But as I say, Hoyland's probably good at holding up the ball, but then it's just trying to get further forward and score the goals. But he was never coming to United to be the finished article straight away. But you kind of want that. Maybe we should have got in the summer an experienced striker that sits alongside him as well. So just, you know, can bring him along as well. So I don't know whether that'll be something, whether it looks in January alone or with somebody in next summer. But yeah, the forward line is concerning me because, you know, if we're not scoring goals, we're not going to win any games at this rate. So, but it just, we feel like, you know, it's like, you know, we just want that one moment where it all just clicks together and we'll start, you know, running away with it. But it just seems to feel like we're starting somewhere and then it suddenly just breaks off and then we're like all back to square one again. So it just, yeah, it's frustrating. And like I said, I go to United games and I'm wanting to United to win as well. So, but we say we can't win every game. We can't, you know, sometimes we draw, sometimes we lose. So it's just, that's the way football goes. It's, you know, you say anything can happen in 90 minutes. But yeah, it's just a bit concerning at the moment. And just like, it's Man United, it's just like, we want the very best for them. Just at the moment, if we look at the whole last 10 years, it's, you know, it's been many ups and downs we've had. So it's just what comes next is the question. So after this with the game, because I know there's a lot of questions are being asked of the manager, the players. You know, I feel like the players are, yeah, it's all on the manager, but the players, obviously, you can't sack the players. So, but you know, it's all on the manager, and just like, you know, the players have to step up as well. So I think Harry Maguire said it after the Liverpool games, like mental blocks in some of the players. Just like, we've got to get past that. What that mental block is, I don't know, but it's got to be sorted out pretty quick because, you know, we can't keep making these mistakes in games. You know, we should be the one in control, which I know Ten Hag likes to be, but, you know, I'm just thinking like the Palace game, did everything but score. So a game like that, say with Palace, you know, we did everything, and say Palace had scored, you know, and they won. But I'd say, well, the way the United played, it was like, well, I said, you put the effort in, we tried, you know, but it's when I see a lack of effort, you know, and, you know, like the Tottenham game, that was probably the worst performance I'd seen under Ten Hag, and I just think back to when Ali was in charge, you know, that 5-0 against Liverpool. I was just like, even when we was 2, 3 and 4, we were still going for it, whereas the Tottenham game, we just capitulated after 1-0 or going 1-0 down. So I'm just like, yeah, just frustrating at the moment. But United will rise out the ashes again, and we'll be back on top.
Do you know, honestly, I've just been so frustrated this week with it's this instant success stuff. Like, we should have it because we're Manchester United. Like, we didn't wait decades to win the title after our last league. Do you know what I mean? Before the Premier League.
I use some lyrics from a certain song called, was it from James Sit Down? If we hadn't seen such riches, we could live with being poor.
Exactly.
Because
that's exactly it. Yeah.
We want more. And as our chant goes, we've seen it all. We've won the lot, and we're never going to stop because we'll carry on winning. So it's just, yeah, it's the fan base at the moment. It's just like, you know, they want all the best players, you know, winning all the trophies. But yeah, football, you know, you know, it's a game of 90 minutes. Anything can happen. So we're going to end up win, losing, or drawing. So
I have to have a laugh as well because 90% of the fans that try and take the piss, they support teams that can't even win a trophy. And we're in the worst decade ever, and we've still picked up 4 or 5 major honours.
It was like Alan Shearer saying, because he does a podcast with Margaret Richards and saying, turning on Man United, former players have turned pundit saying, you know, the way United have been in the last 10 years. I was like, well, I must have thought in my mind, Newcastle, well, you've not had it easy the last how many years as well. And the last time you won a trophy was when?
Yeah. Right, we're gonna go on to Ten Hag, but Daz wants to ask a question about Højlund.
Just a really quick question. I know we've spoke a little bit about, you know, how we know that we like him. We have all agreed we like him, and he could potentially develop into something great. And I think that there maybe should have been a better balance with the Xerxes signing. Maybe brought in someone that. So here's the question, and I'll give my reasoning before you answer it. You can't tell me that Jamie Vardy wouldn't have done a better job than Xerxes, because I think for the same reason Johnny Evans puts in a consistently okay performance, when it comes to strikers, composure, intelligence and experience means loads. And Jamie Vardy might have lost 50% of the quality, but we have seen for Leicester over the last few years that he doesn't need to be as good as he once was, because he's got them 3 things, and because he's got them 3 things, he finds goals. I know United fans would have absolutely hated the idea of Vardy coming in, but do you think he'd have done a better job than Højlund had we have gone for him over Xerxes?
Beanie, that's a you question, I think, mate.
Yeah, it wouldn't be for me, to be honest, because the situation would still be there in a season or two. I quite like the thing that we buy in young, and we buy in, like Daz says, Højlund is hungry. You can tell he loves playing for that shirt. It's just not working for me at the moment, but it's not working for anyone. Xerxes, like Andy says, has had like a handful of games. I think the years of us buying Igalo as a stopgap, Cavani as a stopgap, do you know what I mean? It was awful because the situation is still there. Do you know what I mean? Rebecca Marty, yeah. For me, I like that we're buying young, and the Obi Martin one, if he works out, that saved us 100 million quid, and that's what they're trying to do, because money is tight. And I think as much as expectation is the thing with league position, I think it's very much where we are in the transfer market as well. We're not at that top table where Osherman's going to come to us. Why would he come to us when he's got like PSG and all the riches around him? Why would he come to us with the struggles, with the absolute circus that we are? So I think we're shopping at a very different table as well, which I think expectation, even from a signing point of view, needs to come down a little bit. But for me, I'm happy that we're going young. Euro, I think if he works out, that's money saved. It's just got to think like half a dozen steps ahead for me. If we sign someone like Vardy, in a couple of steps, he's off, retired, and then we need to do it again, and we need to do it again. Whereas if Xerxes works, if Højlund works, if even Ugarte is young, Euro, it's for the future, and I'm all for that. We just need to hope that it clicks.
What about you, Andy? Would you like to see Vardy racing through?
No, just because of that was a gem that Leicester found all them years ago, because he was playing opposite Fleetwood, and there's Fleetwood down in the league. So even my dad said sometimes, you know, Premier League clubs need to look down in the lower leagues, because there's some good players in there that can make the step up, which Jamie Vardy did. And you know, there's many years ago, Jamie Vardy was on the verge of going to Arsenal, and for whatever reason didn't, and then stayed at Leicester. So he's been loyal to that club. So he could have gone to Arsenal. He may have won some trophies at more trophies at Arsenal as well. So, but in saying the likes of, you know, Cavani, and Cavani, I did like it, United, and he was the epitome of, you know, somebody that will work hard. And I just thought, Martial, look at Cavani. That's what you need to do.
Cavani at 26.
Or even Zlatan, or like Zlatan, if we'd have got like him at a young age as well. Yeah. Zlatan was a dressing room leader. I thought I've not seen somebody like that since Eric walked through the door. I'm just like, somebody's like, Zlatan walked through, oh, this is like Eric did, this is my stage, so I'm going to entertain you. So and kept that, when he was in there, that dressing room in check, especially when like the likes of Paul Pogba and others as well. So it was just like, but yeah, it's like, and the guy, it was his boyhood club as well. So it's just, you look at some of the other signings, and there've been some disastrous signings, like, when we signed Di Maria and Falcao. It's just like, there's others. You could make exceptions for a few that have been all right, but it's just that there's been far worse in the last 10 years that we've overpaid, and wages and everything else, and they've failed to justify the hype around them. So is that the pressure of playing for Man United? I don't know. Or it's just like, we have thrown a lot of money up the wall, and some of it's stuck, and some of it just slid down the wall again, and we've just wasted it.
I do think it's a good question, to be honest, but it's the issue of I much prefer the idea of we sign somebody young. We as a fan base have to learn to be a little bit patient, and maybe we'll see the best out of Højlund in 2 years. But I do think Vardy would have done the bits for us in a United shirt, to be honest.
I like him. I think as well, he wouldn't have the same effect as Cavani and Zlatan because he's not in that elite tier that they was, in terms of names. I think when you think of great strikers worldwide, you definitely add Cavani and Zlatan Ibrahimovic into that name. And I think the mistake we made with both of them was, until Ronaldo came along, Cavani was just our striker. He wasn't a backup option for what we've already got. And going back to what Beanie mentioned about how Højlund is hungry, 100%. You start this man, and then because he's young and is inexperienced, he is going to get frustrated. And if I'm a firm believer with someone like Højlund, if it's not happened in 70 minutes, it's not going to happen. Just because of how young he is, how raw he is. But then you bring on a Jamie Vardy, and the thing is, I think his experience, and I think he's gettable. Even if we went for him in December, he's gettable. He's cheap. You could I'm sure Man United could do some sort of swap deal with Leicester, with something. Even if they said, take Johnny Evans back, or I don't know.
Absolutely not taking Johnny Evans back.
It was. The thing is, though, we brought in Højlund, then we bring in someone even less experienced than Xerxes, and obviously we've got someone even less experienced than Obi Martin. And I'm like, unfortunately, the Premier League's, English football is really, really tough. Sometimes you just need experience to get you through games. And I think that's why players like Danny Ings and Jermaine Defoe was just so good, because there wasn't elite level players, but you always see them getting goals because it's just what they did, especially the older they got as well. They just look more vintage and vintage. For me, Jamie Vardy would only be a 2-year option because of his age, but that gives Højlund 2 years to develop a little bit more without having the pressure of you're our number one striker and you need to get 30 goals. Because although I accept that I'm happy for Xerxes and Højlund as a duo to get us 30 goals, 15 apiece across all competitions, and I think that is realistic expectation. Unfortunately, there's a lot of Manchester United fans, like you say, that still think that we're Manchester United and our strikers should be getting 30 goals a season. That's not the case.
The biggest issue with that
number
is tell me a striker outside Haaland and Salah, even though Salah's technically not a striker, that hits 30 goals a season. It's not been a thing for ages. Like you've got the odd player that can do it, and then you've got players that they actually only hit 15 to 18 a season. So to sit and say that Xerxes needs to score 15 is probably 7 too high. If he could hit somewhere near double figures, it'd be a fantastic first season. Like you look back at Højlund last season, he scored plenty of goals last season. He scored enough to be impressed in his first season that it shouldn't be an issue. Anyway, right, we're going to move on. Ten Hag, we're going to keep it. What's the word I'm looking for? Brief, but fair. We'll start with Andy on this one because I always go to match goers. I know it's it's just a thing in my head because they're a lot more patient with managers than people that don't go to the games. That's what I found. It's the away fans, the home fans. They just seem to have this much high barometer of what they will accept before they boo, before they flip flop like me every week. So, what's your? Do you think he's going to go? Do you want him to go? Where are you at with it?
Don't want him to go. I'm not at the stage I want him to go now. Of course, I've got my questions and my grumblings. Like we all do, it's, in the crowd at Old Trafford, things we see, we just sometimes we're not happy with. And I just think, like yesterday, the media and, the opposition fans, they were turning up to see, an execution of Ten Hag, and Villa were going to play the executioner. And, for Ten Hag, he's, stood up and, ensured the speculation over what might happen, was a very mute point at the end with the draw. I think if we if we lost against Porto and Villa, then more the serious questions to be asked. But you say, the players are, still fighting for him. You saw Villa riding high after their victory against Bayern Munich, and the inform of John Duran. It was all set to be, United were going to get thrashed as well. So, but it was dogged against Villa, and against Porto. We fought back. To look like we was going to run away with it with the 2-0 lead, and then getting paired back, and then Maguire, saving us at the end. But it just, problems still persist. But it just, as I said, it's the lack of goals at the moment and just dominating teams. I would say it's not the same, kind of performance, like, what I saw, when Ollie's last game away at Watford, where the team just threw their hands up and threw him under the bus. So, but, the players stood up for Ten Hag and said, it's not today, you're going to be, but it's just, I don't know if it's prolonging the inevitable or not. The big meeting tomorrow, so it just all ask you the questions. Why is Old Trafford becoming a graveyard for managers as well? So why are these managers not, lasting as long, or we have a bit of success and then it all starts falling apart again? So
literally.
Yeah, sorry, I just got my remote over. But yeah, it's just. Because we always get fans question, well, what do they do in training? Why doesn't it translate to match day? It just feels like we've gone around this merry-go-round in circles of the last 10 years. I think I looked at it the other day, like the managers, they've gone before, and it's always been when we've been, we've had a certain result away from Old Trafford. It's been like the final nail in the manager's coffin, and I thought, would Villa, yesterday be the final? So I thought if we don't win, then it depends how we lost. It's going to be like, well, I just don't know with Ten Hag at the moment. I don't know whether yesterday was his final fixture, but is it prolonging the inevitable? Dan Ashworth spoke about this as focusing on the medium to long-term results. But talk is Ruud van Nistelrooy is waiting in the wings, but it's been reported he doesn't want to sort of take it because he feels like he stabbed Ten Hag in the back as well because Ten Hag brought him in. So, but it just I feel like United in the next 2 weeks, like damned if we do and damned if we don't. But it's just that uncertainty at the moment. So, but you say they gave him the back in after the FA Cup final. So I just feel like see how it goes after the international break and towards Christmas, because Christmas we always say we know where we truly lie and where we can kick on in the second half of the season. But I still back Ten Hag. I say I feel like he's vastly underrated. It's just you just see what's said on social media some of the time. It's just a big grossly unfair on him. So it's just you can do it. It's just as he says, the consistency of it, which we don't have at the moment. So I just like Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool as well. When he first came, I said this to my dad. I said, well, like the first few years it was up and down. You weren't the machine that you became. So
same with Arsenal. Arteta.
I know Arteta could have gone another year ago. Was it the first 3 games of the season? They
had a patch where they lost, I think, 10 of 12.
Yeah, and they were calling for his head and like, oh, even I was like, gotta go. And it was like, sometimes you've got to hold your nerve and just like, it's tough at the moment. So, been back to Fergie in that famous banner 3 years and it's still crap. And if they got rid of him, well, we wouldn't have done what we had done. So sometimes it's just like, I just think if he was to go, who is out there beside who would really want to go and get? And I don't think that the choices that are out there are not inspiring me. So yeah, I will stick with 10.
I sort of know where Daz is going to be on this, so we're going to come to Daz last. Beanie, what about you? Where are you with it? Like, I think you're a bit like me. You flip flop a little bit because you're like, what am I watching? And then you're like, well, I can see what they're trying to do, but the execution's not fantastic. So, like, do you think he stays? Do you want him to go? What do you think the future is? Well, tomorrow. What could be tomorrow?
Well, a bit like Andy, really. I don't want him to go because I don't like this constant circus of changing managers, changing the players, and doing all that. I'm just not seeing enough from him that's not inspiring me, but just doesn't make me think that in a year's time it's going to be better. I just think we're far too easy to get at Old Trafford, especially as well. Teams are coming to Old Trafford knowing now that they'll just turn up and we will get turned over nice and easy. Like that Tottenham game, that was a real shocker. But as Andy said rightly as well, who is there to come in? Like Southgate, wow, that would be real bad. Tuchel, I don't really know. I personally don't think they'll sack him. I don't think they're going to want to pay him off personally. And then it begs the question of how low is acceptable for United to drop. What are we now, 14th? If we continue to not win games, I know I said on a show a few weeks ago we'll be in a relegation scrap, or I said it in our WhatsApp group, and like Barry laughed. But if we keep dropping, we will be in that relegation scrap. Do you know what I mean? And for me, it's just standards. I'm not one of these fans that think we should be top 4. We should be challenging for the title. I just want to see a performance. Do you know what I mean? I want to see just something
you can get behind.
Yeah, something to get our teeth into and think, yeah, come on, there's something there to like work on. But it just feels like we're winging games. It feels like we're like moments FC at the minute. Like yesterday, if that Bruno goal would have gone in, that's the moment that Ten Hag waits for in all his games. And like last season against Liverpool in the FA Cup, we had the moment with Diallo. Do you know what I mean? I just don't see enough in Ten Hag long term. I don't want to get rid of him purely because of the circus, but I think it's inevitable. And I don't think having a manager that is a game or 2 away from getting sacked, I don't think as a player, I don't think that's great either from like a long term point of view. I don't think bring Rude in. I think that's a real bad shout as well. Because I think there's a little bit of accountability for Rude as well. To be fair, he's brought in as this great goal scorer. But maybe we couldn't hit a barn door at the minute. Do you know what I mean? So he can't be doing much in the training. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I think he probably should go. I don't think he will. And then it's just how far do United go? Then how far do we drop? Like Europa League, I don't think we should be winning it, but we should be qualifying through that. Do you know what I mean? It's like we're just treading water in every game and just hoping something will happen instead of having like a real plan. His substitutions, wow. I've said it on shows before. I'm sure he has them written down. At 60 minutes, he's going to change these 2 players for these 2 players, regardless of what's happening on the field. Rashford against Porto, what are you doing, man? Don't worry about Villa on Sunday. Win this game in front of you. If Rashford's our best player, leave him on. Win the bloody game in front of you. Do you know what I mean? Worry about that before you worry about Sunday. Just some of his tactics, some of just what he does, I just find very baffling at times for someone that's trying to save his job. I'd get rid of him, but I don't think they will.
I've got a different sort of question for you, Daz, because I think I know where we are with you, with your feelings on Ten Hag. So tomorrow comes, we wake up, it's a dreary day as usual. We've sacked another manager. Who comes in?
So, I did my 3-man shortlist, and just really quickly, my 3-man shortlist Number 3 was an out there option, and just because I like him and just because he's got Premier League experience, and it is a third option, was Frank from Brentford. So, yeah, I just like him, and I think he's ready for a step up. You know, maybe, you know, he's sort of, in my opinion, where David Moyes was when he took the United job, ready for a step up. But the question is United a step too far? That's the first thing. Nagelsmann was obviously on the list, and obviously I had Thomas Tuchel also on that list. But we cried for the last few years that Manchester United had a competent structure of people that did certain jobs, and we started acting like a football club. Now, I'm told there was a meeting today at Old Trafford, and I'm told that there is another one tomorrow at the London offices, and the managerial position will get mentioned in that. What I want them to do, regardless to whether I want Ten Hag to go or not, is I want them as a group of people to say, what is the problem? Now, it might be far more technical for any of us to understand, but they need to identify what they think is the problem. Then ask themselves, can Ten Hag fix that? Do they genuinely think he can fix that problem? If the answer is yes, for the reasons Andy, and I know you're going to say, okay, let's break the cycle and just keep him. If you think he can keep, you know, if you think he can solve that problem, let's help him solve that problem. If you answer that question, no, he can't solve that problem, then ultimately the next question is, well, who can? Because if nobody else can fix that problem, then there's point of sacking the manager for the sake of sacking the manager. But also, you've got to cross-reference that is Manchester United can't afford another rebuild. This has got to be a bit. If we sack the manager, this has got to be a build upon. We've got to go to the market and look for a manager. It can't just literally be, oh, Southgate's free, Graham Potter's free, or Inzaghi had come. Can't be like that. It's got to be a conversation with managers to say that this is what we've started to build. It obviously hasn't worked under Ten Hag. This is the characteristics that this group of player has. This is our vision for the future that we've already set in stone. Does your managerial style, philosophy fit this? If it doesn't, then it's the wrong manager, because we can't afford another rebuild. And I dare I say it, I think we need the Liverpool approach on this. Liverpool didn't try and replace Klopp because they knew they couldn't. What they did is they went to the market and found a manager that could work with what Klopp had already built. And that's what Arne Slot's coming. He's just come in his babysat.
He hasn't.
You know what I mean?
I've watched a lot of Liverpool games this season, and I can tell you from watching Liverpool, Slot's football is completely different to Klopp. The way they build up, the way they press.
No, but he's using the characteristics of them certain players. He's not come in and said that Trent. He's still using Trent to his key strengths. He's still using the key strengths of Robinson, Virgil van Dijk. He's still using players' key strengths, which means they've still got a place within that team. If anything, that new style has brought out, Gravensburg, players like that Klopp didn't quite have the chance or the time to do a lot with. But I just feel as if, I want Ten Hag to go, not because of the results, believe it or not. I said at the beginning of the season when we did the pre-show that I thought it was going to get better before it could get worse, and that was fine. For me, it's the way that he handles himself with the media. He lets them push him around, and there's zero accountability when he talks to him. I look at the way that he's mismanaged players like Marcus Rashford, using the confidence building and losing his confidence over the last few games. His substitutions, although a couple of games ago, bringing Maguire on worked and he got a goal, and we managed to salvage something from that game. Yeah, it was just one of them where every so often you're going to make a substitution and it's going to work. Doesn't mean it was the right substitution. The issue is he got himself in a position where he had no forward to bring on because he messed his earlier substitutions up. I think when we at the weekend we saw against Villa, we saw him arguing with his staff at the side. You know, there's no clear of what the conversation was, but you could see that he was frustrated with the way that he was talking to the coaches around him. Well, the last load of coaches that he was given last year didn't work, and there was moved on, which tells me can he work with coaches, because this is a second load of coaches that he's got that regardless to what he wants to do, these coaches are not getting the best out of it. I think the media have already wrote him off. It doesn't matter what he does, they've wrote him off.
So in a word, because you still haven't answered my question. Who fixes it?
You what, sorry? Who do I think fixes it? You're going to hate me for saying this.
He's going to say Gareth Southgate.
You're going to hate me for... It's not my... Look, I made a 5-man shortlist, and this man didn't fit my 5-man shortlist. He didn't. But dare I say it, I look at the characteristics of some of these players, and I look at how it would look, and we won't like the football because it'll be like the Aston Villa game, but we will win loads of games and accumulate loads of points. I think Southgate does a really good job with this team. And I shouldn't lie.
Fixed it.
Who's this?
I knew he was going to say. I knew he was going to say Southgate.
It's not my choice. It's not my choice that I don't want him. It's not my choice that I don't want him. But I genuinely don't want him. But sometimes certain clubs have certain managers have a certain style that suit a certain group of players, and it just works. Ranieri with Leicester being a perfect example. You know, Ranieri's not a top manager, but he had the right group of players at Leicester and he won the league with them. And he's never been able to emulate, for me, anything as good as that. I know he's won stuff in his career, but I think that was the peak of his career, what he did at Leicester. And I think it was just his suitability for the players and the club and everything. But in the minute them players started to move on in the summer, it didn't fit anymore for him. And that's why, you know, Leicester didn't stay at the top of the Premier League. And I just feel as if, and you know what? I think our centre-back partnership with Southgate would be Matthias de Ligt and Harry Maguire. They'd sit really deep like John Stones and Harry Maguire did. I think Luke Shaw will play the same role that he did with England. I think Mazraoui would play, or Delo would play a similar role to, I know he's not as good as Trent and Walker, but he'd play a similar role because he's a bit more of an all-rounder. I think he would play 2 defensive midfielders, and I think as it stands, that would be Casemiro and Ugarte, you know, with a twist of Mainu where needed. I think Bruno Fernandes would be his attacking midfielder. Rashford has looked good for England, especially the year he got the 30 goals. We've got, you know, right wingers that can. Honestly, the team, it's the England team. It can like for like it. And he didn't do a good job with England because he was a good manager. He did a good job because he had a really awkward style of play that grinded 1-0 wins out. Who will be your Kane? Okay, we've not quite got a Harry Kane, but in all fairness, when it's come to major tournaments, Harry Kane isn't as good as people think he is. Harry Kane's, for me, is the best striker in the world. You know, I think he's the best striker in the world, and I'd argue that with anyone. And I know everyone's got their own preference in this, but I don't think he was as impactful as people thought. You know, for England, I think he was in the qualifying games, but in a major tournament, he just never seemed to hit that Harry Kane peak.
It's often the case, isn't it? When we're going off tangent, it's often the case when England go tournaments, the players aren't what they were. For me, Ten Hag is very, very simple. I find this is why it's so interesting to get other people's opinions on it, because what Daz is saying there is exactly what Ten Hag is currently suffering with, that Gareth Southgate would come in and then suffer with. So it's always going to come back to, are the fans patient enough to allow someone to succeed? And we've seen since Fergie left, The answer is no. They wanted Moyes out after 7 months. Van Gaal had just won an FA Cup and they wanted him out, even though statistically the football was very good in terms of what people talk about now. I found it boring. You've got Jose Mourinho, the serial winner that was winning things for us, wasn't good enough. Got rid of him. You had Solskjaer, again, didn't win anything, but the only manager to finish Champions League positions via the league since Fergie retired. Wasn't good enough PE teacher. Anybody else could have done it. So at what point is it just it's a club issue more than a manager issue? So you've got to let him. Like I've said to quite a few people today on X, don't disagree what people are saying. I don't disagree with Beanie. I don't disagree with Andy. I don't disagree with 90% of what Daz has said. Most of it's bob on. But you've got to look and you've got to think he deserves until Christmas, because he's just no other manager would have won an FA Cup with Manchester United last season with the injuries that he had. It just wouldn't have happened. They would have struggled, and we won the League Cup as well in the 2 years. So for me, it's just about being patient and going, you know what, it's got a little bit rough. We've got a little bit bad at the start of this season. Give him till Christmas, see where we're at Christmas, see if he can impact the players, change some things. Maybe I like the stuff like we saw against Villa. He's dropped his centre-back pairing, and he's not, I don't care what anybody says, he's not dropped them because of rotation. He's dropped them because they haven't been good enough. And that's what we need more of. We need more of, look, if you're not playing up to scratch, I'm going to rotate you. And even if it's for players that maybe you wouldn't expect to play, like Johnny Evans, like Christian Eriksen, like Maguire, but you do it anyway because it's what's best for the team, it's what's right for the team. And while he's doing that, I can get behind it. Because again, I'll briefly go back to the Villa game, since we didn't talk about it a lot, but the Garnacho chance at the end to put in Fernandes, that's a 1-0 win. If he just lifts the ball or goes round the defender instead of trying to pass behind him, we win 1-0. We had lots of chances to win. So I think the agreement we've come to between the four of us is nobody knows. We don't know.
I agree with what you said. I do agree with everything you're saying, though, Dan. But one thing I do want people to be mindful of, two things, is it's unfair to talk about why past managers didn't work because of two things. There's no Ed Woodward now. The Glazers are not pulling the football strings of the football club, and there is a decent structure in place. The question is, would their managers have been successful under this new regime? We'd never know, but I think they'd have had a better foundation for success. But it's also okay to admit that you brought a manager in, which is Erik ten Hag, for a 3, 4, 5 year project. And I think it should be okay to look at that and say, we've done everything, but he's just not the right man to take this project forward. And again, they have the data, they'll have the data, the coaching, they'll have spoken to players, agents, they'll know more than us. And I just don't see anything. I get what you're saying about, a goal here and a goal there would have won games, but even the rawness of it, some of the rawness that he inherited is still there, and people keep blaming the players, and I'm like, but how many players do we need to circulate? 16 players left Manchester United in his first 12 months. I can't remember off the top of my head how many players left last summer, but he's had over 25 players, I know that much, leave either just before he took the job, well, from the end of that season that Ralf Rangnick to now. How many players needs to be circulated before people keep saying it's not, it's not the players anymore, it's a manager's job? I mean, I said something earlier in the season, I'm going to stand by it. The difference between Man United and Arsenal isn't the quality of players.
That's madness. Right. We've got to move on. That is madness. So I don't agree with that at all. The difference between Man United and Arsenal is Arteta, under a proper structure, has had 3 or 4 seasons to implement what he wants to do, as well as get the likes of Aubameyang out the club, Lacazette out the club, Xhaka out the club. Well, not out the club, but he had so many problems with the fans that he fixed it in the time period he was there. Again, Arteta went for a run of losing, I think it was 10 of 12 games and really, really struggling. And Arsenal fans calling for him to be gone. The club ignored them. We got through it fine. There's something on here for you, Daz. Dave says you're in a different time zone because it's only just after 7:30 there. I think he's referring to the clock behind you.
If you, you know what? It's a broken clock that never works. But my wife loves it. No, but I know what people are thinking. If you built a combined Arsenal and Man United 11, I guarantee you I could put 4 or 5 Man United players in there, or at least have an argument for them based on how good we know they are, not how good they're
Have you got
playing,
some red tinted glasses on the table?
How good we know they are.
You got some red tinted glasses on the table.
Who are the 5? That's who are the 5? Who are the 5 that get into the Arsenal team?
I think so. You built just quickly. I think Onana at his best. The Onana we saw at Inter Milan is on par with Raya, 100%. I think Raya's had just a better start at Arsenal, but I think they're on par. So you could have an argument 3-1 based on the quality that we know. Luke Shaw, for me, when fit, is the best left back in the world. I don't think there's a better left back than Luke Shaw. Obviously, he's not fit, but we're talking this basing this purely on quality. I think right back, I think Delo for Portugal has been better than Ben White has ever been. Delo is immense for Portugal. Why are we not getting that out of Delo? Delo's been good for Man United, very good at times, but he's never been that good. I think Lisandro Martinez, we see his quality last year. Wouldn't get in a team over Saliba, but I think he'd get in a team over Gabriel. Matthias de Ligt, again, another one that you could argue would get in over Gabriel. Declan Rice would ultimately be your CDM. But are you comparing it to everyone thinks Casemiro's lost his legs. 18 months ago, he was on par with Rodri. He had an amazing season in Ten Hag's first year, and actually he was voted in 2 Player of the Year teams, 2 Team of the Years, including LMAs, and Rodri was voted in the other 2. Why are we not getting that out of Casemiro anymore? A player doesn't just turn crap in one season. Something happens or mismanages. Kobe Mainoo, I think, not quite ready to start, but he would make a combined squad. Bruno Fernandes, most productive player in the Premier League since he's been here. There's not a player, including Martin Odegaard, including Kevin De Bruyne, that has more goals, assists, chances created, forward passes. No midfielder, Marcus Rashford, capable of scoring 30 goals a year. Why? Because we've seen it. Way better than Martinelli. I'd give Saka in that team. I don't think either team have got a solid striker, but you'd give Arsenal. So I've not counted that, but I think Luke Shaw would get in that team for sure. I think one of our midfielders, one of our defenders would get in that team. Are you talking about Casemiro now or Casemiro that when we first see him? If you can get that Casemiro back out of him, he makes that combined Arsenal team. But then you take away the Man United starting 11, you take away Arsenal starting 11, you build a second combined team. I would put more Man United players in that combined team. And I don't think Mikel Arteta is an elite manager. I think he's a very good manager, but I don't think he's an elite manager. And I think this is why he can't get it over the line over the last 2 years. He chucked it away in his first year, in the first year that he challenged. Last year, I think if he was just a little bit better, he'd have got it over the line, and I think he'll fall short again this year. Had that been an elite manager, I think he'd have got it over the line. But
I've got to shoot a retort. I've got a mute again. I've got a mute. Retort here. So madness for a start. Shaw's not a better player than Calafiori. Gabriel and Saliba are the best centre-back pairing in the Premier League. Ben White is vastly underrated as a defender. He's been brilliant for Arsenal, and probably 90% of the reason the defense has been so good in terms of consistent. Arteta's a very good manager. He's won the FA Cup with Arsenal. That was a question earlier. He's won the FA Cup. I think there's an argument for maybe one or two United players getting in there. The problem you got there, Daz, is you're playing FIFA 21 and it's FIFA 25. So it's okay to say these players could be this good and did that season, but it's not where we're at the minute. We're taking on to an hour and a half. This always happens when Daz is on because he's amazing. This is the one I wanted to go back to. Can anybody else remember when he got his debut that his dad won £10,000 because he bet that he would play for Manchester United's first team?
Yeah, when he was a kid. He put the bet underneath. Yeah.
He bet when he was a kid that he would make an appearance. And I don't know whether it was a cup game or not. And then he ended up winning it. I can remember it being on like Match of the Day on TV or something like that. And I thought it was absolutely amazing. The one last thing I wanted to go to is a bit more light-hearted before we end the show. Is we were talking earlier about we'll take it with this one. Brilliant. It's because he's so tanned. That's fantastic. I got that. We talk about lower league players. I just want you to name one player that you really would have liked to have seen play in the Premier League that maybe never got there. I can always remember sort of 2000, 2005. I don't know if you remember the player called Lee Trundle for Swansea. Absolutely amazing. And I would have loved to have seen him play at a high level, but he never quite got there. So what player from a lower league that comes to mind that would you like to see play a little bit higher, if anybody's got one off the top of their head?
Probably not, but someone that a little bit like that was Nick Powell for me when he signed for United. I thought he was very good at the time, but he never really got the chance, did he? And then he went off to possibly Wigan, did he? After, or was that where we got him from? I can't remember.
I think we got him from Wigan and he went back to Wigan. Is that right?
Yeah. He seemed like he was a very good player when we brought him. Like he looked like he had a lot of potential, but he never really got to it. Yeah, I'd have liked to have seen him get a chance.
Well, you, Daz, you got any players from the lower league that you would have liked to see at the top level and just never made it?
Not quite a lower league, but I think one of the players that comes to mind that played at the low end of the Premier League and the Championship most of his career was Ashley Williams. I thought he had the ability to play at a really good level, just never got given the opportunity. I think I saw the way that he captained that Wales team, you know, over the time that Coleman was the manager and Gareth Bale, you know, when they was having their fairy tale time. And I just felt, I looked at him once and I just looked at him and thought, that's the sort of captain we need at Man United. You know, where we was going through that first stage of not really being able to find a captain. But
should have said Mbappe.
No, I mean, I thought you meant English football. You know,
it's just NTB funny. Andy, you got any lower league players that you'd like to see playing in the upper tiers? Just never quite made it, but they just seemed immense.
He's saying something that was like immense. I'm just thinking, don't know why the one that comes to mind is Akim Fenwa, was known as the Beast. You know, he played for Wickham and other teams.
He would have been bench pressing defenders.
Yeah, I was thinking he would have been interested to be made of, you know, into the Premier League. How well he would have done. So it was just the one name sprang to mind.
I would have loved to.
I'm sure he did play for QPR.
He did play in the Premier. Yeah, I can remember being an absolute wizard.
Bought them up, but yeah, back in Fenwa, that would have been interesting. Yeah.
That's a great shout. That is a great shout, to be fair. So, we're going to call it there. We've managed an hour and 33 minutes, which is not too shabby. Obviously, we'll be tweeting the news tomorrow, depending what happens. I am of the opinion, I hope he stays. I hope that we just, honestly, I think he just deserves till Christmas. Like, it might just be a bit of, I'm still reluctant that we sacked Ollie, and we should have given him a bit longer. But I hope we give him till Christmas. He's won us a couple of trophies. He deserves that. Let's be honest. No matter who comes in this season, it's not going to overly change our fortunes. It's not going to be any instant success. It's going to take a couple of years. The new ownership's been in place for 7 game weeks, let's say. So it's not like it's he's had 2 seasons of them. So we've just got to see how it develops, let him settle in. Obviously, it'll be a big day tomorrow. I don't know what the plans are from Barry in terms of shows in the international break, but I'd imagine if Ten Hag is sacked, there's going to be a show at some point to discuss it. If he stays, I'd imagine there's probably going to be a show to discuss it. So yeah. So, Beanie, where can everybody find you?
MUFC Beanie 7 on TikTok.
Love the little look down, even though it's on the screen. Daz, obviously, TikTok. That's where we find you these days.
Yeah, you'll normally find me arguing on TikTok, no doubt, but yeah, normally with Andy, to be fair.
I'll be honest, I've watched the pots a few times. I've seen you arguing. Mr. Wall, would you like to give a shout out to your column that you've been doing? I've been reading some of them.
Yeah, you can find my ramblings on Stretford paddocks. You can find them on there, or find my X handle down there as well.
And by the way, just a shout out to Paddock, because Motti was one of the only people on the big accounts that hammered Evans and Maguire starting. That then after the game when I owe Johnny Evans an apology because he was immense. Whereas all the other big accounts went quiet after he had that performance. What else we got? Appreciate that, Dav. We'll obviously hope to see you on the next one. So yeah, peace out from us. Let's just see what tomorrow brings. It's been an absolute nightmare being a United fan these days, isn't it? Right, peace out.